के चहल चले लहू लगा के औरतों पे घोड़े चला के इस्लाम का नाम लेकर बाजारों में बम चलाएं बच्चियों के ये स्कूल चलाएं मिट्टी में इज्जत मिलाएं अमेरिका के चमचे सारे कब से हो गए दोस्त हमारे अमेरिका के पिट्ठू सारे कब से हो गए यार हमारे मिलकर बोलो दहशतगर्दी मुर्दाबाद ये दहशतगर्दी मुर्दाबाद दहशतगर्दी मुर्दाबाद ये दहशतगर्दी मुर्दाबाद
That was a music video from the band Lal's Death of Terrorism. Their song, a very radical band from Pakistan, a new band that had been banned by the Pakistani authorities when they asked Facebook to shut them down. You're watching India Post Live, India's first web TV news conversation. I'm Shivraj, and today we're discussing the freedom of expression through music and how we've been seeing a wave of governments trying to shut down independent groups, trying to make a statement through their music. Well, joining us via Google Hangout from Pakistan is Taimur Rahman and Mahvash Waqar, who are from the band Lal. Taimur, when you were shut down, did you have any idea that you were being closed out?
Not at all. In fact, we were sent no notification whatsoever, neither by Facebook nor by the Pakistan Telecommunications Authority. And it took us a while, in fact, to figure out what was going on because we were access to our Facebook page, which has about 400,000 people on it, was restricted only in Pakistan. People in India distressed us, people in the UK, but nobody in Pakistan could access our page. So it took us a while to figure out that it was PTA that had requested Facebook to shut our page down.
Mahvash, there was obviously a lot of international pressure, but clearly the entire controversy has seen a lot of interest in your music. So what have the reactions been post the shutdown to the kind of music that you're making?
Yeah, I think the kind of radical music that we've been making so far may have been one of the reasons why they may have wanted to shut us down.
Right.
But honestly, I think you have to look at, examine what's been going on in Pakistan recently, which has been increasing control not only of mainstream media, but also social media. There were several pages that were secular and democratic that were shut down in Pakistan.
Right, I believe 162 last year that were actually content sites that were shut down. Right now, of course, you have situation in Karachi. You have a lot of issues that have been sort of going around. But clearly, your music says a lot about what young Pakistanis feel is wrong with the country. So what have the reactions been to A, the ban, and B, to now what's been happening?
Well, to the ban, the reaction has been very, very positive. Young people, I mean, we never expected that our music, which is very radical and left-wing, would be as popular as it is given the political situation in the country. But I suppose it shows that there are still many, many people who feel very strongly that Pakistan should move in a progressive direction. Public support for the ban has been very high. In fact, it's become higher after the ban and then the upliftment of the ban. Because when we were banned, then Facebook and Twitter and the Pakistani press and the international press, everybody took up this cause. And I think, in fact, that boosted the popularity of our music in our band enormously.
All right. We will, of course, keep coming back to you, but joining us in studio is Professor Krishnan Unni, who's an associate professor in English in Delhi University. It's ironic because every time there is a wave of muzzling or trying to shut down a creative piece like what Lal's been doing or bands in the past, it's actually backfired, hasn't it?
Exactly, and there are a number of nuances that are associated with this kind of ban. For me, I would like to see the situation like this, because ban always is a kind of exclusion. You are excluding a group of people, or you are excluding essentially a person, either essentially a person or a group of people who really want to express something by keeping this idea at the back of the mind regarding freedom of expression. And this freedom of expression definitely is a very, very important question in our time, whether it is through music or through books or through certain other format, which is basically fundamentally getting, proffered through, social networks or something like that. But as far as the music, I would like to tell you something, because there is a huge difference between a mainstream music and a popular music. So there was a time when, including India, and definitely I'm sure about Pakistan too, was looking at the kind of the mainstream music. These are the standards by which you should have a band, music band. These are the standards by which you should have something of your own if you want to create something innovative. But this is a time, the global times is, we find somehow or other the distinction between the popular as well as the mainstream is getting highly diffused. Popular is getting very, very powerful, because it is through the popular music the young generations can express their innate anger, their innate angst, their anxieties.
Discontent.
Exactly, discontent. So there is a whole simmering discontent which is across almost all the third world nations against a kind of the political setup, against certain kinds of fundamentalist attitude that that is springing up from each and every nook and corner. And there is also this simmering discontent you can see in their eyes, the way they train the music or whatever. So this is something which we need to understand, why there is a peculiar kind of a ban which is coming upon certain kinds of bands or something like that. And popular music for me is very important, because this is the music which really can give energy to the masses concerned with the, whatever be the political discontent, they are having.
And Mevish, we were just discussing in studio about what resonates with people. Clearly, your lyrics, your music connects with the young people, not just in Pakistan, but somewhat pan-South Asia as well, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. And we're always surprised when we come to India and people actually know all our entire lyrics, singing along with our songs. They understand what we're trying to say. Sometimes even more so than people in Pakistan do. Yeah, honestly, the sort of the impact that we have in India and the response that we get in India actually is fantastic. And it's great to see that we're able to reach out to so many people here, regardless of boundaries or caste or religion or anything else.
And clearly YouTube and social media is a leveler, isn't it? I mean, governments might try and ban you, but you're going to get the message out anyways.
Well, I think that's one of the things about being a basic person. We always find ways to get around stuff, loopholes, and how to do everything, whether it's the wrong way or the right way. So no one can stop us.
Any new lyrics that you've thought of post-ban that kind of sends a message across that you can't be stopped?
I don't know, but
we're so busy fighting the band that we haven't had time to organize the band yet.
And what are your plans for touring now?
Sorry?
What are your future plans for touring and taking this beyond your specific geography? Because clearly internationally now you've got a lot of attention.
Yeah, we're planning a very serious and big tour across the villages of Pakistan, starting after Ramadan, with the help of South Asia Partnership. They're sponsoring the tour, so it's going to be very big, very grassroots, and hopefully we're going to be able to reach out to at least 45 districts of Pakistan. So we're in the planning stage for that, because it's a very, very major tour. But if we manage that will really sort of take our music to the grassroots in Pakistan.
All right, thank you so much. And we've also got Sana Salim joining us from Karachi. Sana, you're the director of Bolo Bhi. Clearly, what's been happening in Pakistan, and clearly what's been happening not just in Pakistan, but everywhere, where social media is sort of, diffusing the lines between mainstream and popular and resonating with people despite government restrictions. What do you make of what's been happening so far with the PTA stepping in and trying to shut down sites?
So, I mean, just to take a little step back, we just listened to one of our freedom of information, because, just to give you an overview, there's never been any clarity, there's never been any transparency on how these sites PT is the regulator, but it's always that municipality is the policy-making body, and there's another body that's called the Committee for Evaluation of Websites. That sounds like something that's George Orwell's novel. And nobody knows who this committee is, nobody knows how those policies are made. But we just learned recently that in 2012, the ministry the farmers to the PTA to block content that is blasphemous or that is either blasphemous or obnoxious. So for something like the Lal ban blockage, we were shocked that that block access to the Lal. Most of the Lal also rely heavily on lists of poets that have been movement or program.
All right.
So the fact that we block that means that
Okay, so thank you so much. Just want to go back to Taimur one last bit before we go to our next, Skype caller. Taimur, you had posted something very interesting on Facebook. There was an editorial on shackling of the minds, and what our previous guest was referring to is that it's all very, very sort of murky the way decisions are made around what is right and what is acceptable.
Totally, it's not only murky, it's completely shadowy and Orwellian actually, given the fact that we know for a fact that the Pakistan Telecommunications Authority has an agreement with Facebook, whereby if they send a report to Facebook saying that XYZ page should be banned, it will be banned or restricted in Pakistan, it will be restricted in Pakistan. Yet the page will not be notified, the page owner will not be notified, neither PTA nor Facebook will notify that. Moreover, when PTA was asked this by various journalists such as the AFP, the New York Times and others, and by Dawn and so on, they completely denied not only the fact that they had banned Lal, even though Facebook itself had accepted that they had shut down Lal on the orders or on the request of the PTA, but they also denied that they had any such agreement with Facebook. Now the thing is that if we are not saying that that nothing. We're not saying we're not believers in absolute free speech, whereby people should be allowed to spread hatred and create a situation where there's violence and so on. Pakistan is in a very delicate situation at the moment. But the thing is, there has to be some process here. There has to be some right of appeal. Anybody who's accused of anything has to
there has to be a method. There has to be a method.
Has to have the right to defend themselves.
All right. We're also joined by Shoaib Taimur as well via Skype. Shoaib, go ahead. What is your view on the whole situation?
Sorry, the situation about the ban?
Yes.
So basically, I don't think that they have a right to ban what they do is right. Because if they really wanted to do something, they could have gotten rid of all those explicit pages which were getting people to do stuff which goes against the country. Why are they going against pages which have not done much? They fear that people will be children of one. I don't understand that they have much to hold. You cannot just ban one book from the library. You cannot ban the whole library. Going to just a birthday or just going to do something.
All right.
The PTA has been. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes. All right. So actually, interestingly, we also have a video response from Sri Lanka. Imam Majid sent us this video message on the issue of freedom, expression, and music.
My name's Imad Majid, and I'm a poet and a musician in Sri Lanka. To me, freedom of expression is something that's applied even to my job as a journalist as well as my music, because I'm someone who doesn't let a controversial topic stop me from discussing something that's been bothering me. I've come into trouble actually from expressing myself this one time for using a term that is considered racist and derogatory, but is often used by the Sinhalese majority of this country against my own Muslim people. And it was a fellow Muslim who had an issue with me using this term and actually complained to the organizers of an event that I was using racist, derogatory language. So I think it's not just about the state that inhibits your freedom of expression, but also your peers, your fellow people who are too sensitive to some things to really understand artistic expression, and that's the real problem. You have some people just aren't open to that idea and don't want their bubble to be popped by someone who has a free mind and is a free speaker.
Free minds and freedom of expression. Professor Oni, we were discussing the historicity of freedom of expression. Through the ages, there have been those who've made decisions on what's right, what's wrong, but somehow the freedom of expression has made that piece that was once considered bad and banned far more popular in future generations as well.
Yeah, this is a, in fact, this is a big question, because let me go back to, one of the incident which I, which is coming to my mind very, very clearly. This goes back to the 1960s of the Beatles generation. When they came up with this famous song, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, it was not aired at all. The reason why was the British liberals took a stand against it. It's ironic that the British liberals took a stand against it, telling that if you look at the the title of the song, it also refers to some kind of LSD. All right. So the question, they pinpointed on the notion of LSD, the Beatles using LSD or whatever, while the song was totally different. It was a radical expression. And if you look at the history of the past 10 years, before the Egyptian insurrection, I remember around 20 bands like this were completely banned inside Egypt. But the future generation, since you asked this question, I think they should take a very, very radical stand. They should have some, I even propose some kind of, underworld or some kind of, underground organizations, not underworld, ground organizations, whereby the message can immediately spread. Once it spreads, the radical politics, music is also an expression of radical politics. So what kind of radicality are you proposing? That is an entirely different question. But I'm sure that the third world generations are very, very aware of this kind of radical politics, the radical music which is coming up, the bands which are quite innovative. And I'm damn sure of the fact that this undoubtedly will prove a new way of a resistance, whereby multiple sides of resistance can come together, and they can propose that this is what we are. This is where we want to interject the third world, peculiar kind of politics. And we are under a kind of peculiar regime, though the regime or the government says that we are liberal, we give you this, we give you clothes, we give you kapada makan or whatever. Well, there are certain irky factors that are deeply ingrained in us, and this will come in the form of an expression of music.
Absolutely. So Taimur, we're coming back to you at Mehwas. You're saying you're going to go now to a grassroots, go speak to the people through your music. Any sort of track or tune that you've chosen that would really be your starter? Could you sort of give us a flavor on the show of a song?
With respect to Faiz Ahmed Faiz, who previously spoke in favor of the freedom of the media and the press when he was in prison, and he said, "Matahe loho kalam chin pe kya gam hai? Ye khoon hai dil mein, daboli hai ungliyan mein." So I won't play the whole song, but I'll sing a bit of it. What that means is, sorry, that if the magic of the pen and paper has been lost, it doesn't matter, because we have dipped our fingers into our own heart's blood and we write with our own blood. So here's the song. Mataye lo kalam chindai ko kya hai? Is tumne dil mein daboli hai ungliyan mein? बताए लोग छिन गई तो क्या कितने कितने बोली दुनिया में सुबह पे मोहर लगी है तो क्या अरे निकलता संगी बेसुबाह में अरे निकलता संगी बेसुबाह में
Thank you so much. And clearly, fairs will resonate with, I think, a lot of people across borders and on the ground. We've also got a video message from Karachi from Amir Mughal, who's clearly very active on Twitter and is an avid watcher of the show as well.
Nobody has the right to snatch the choice, freedom of choice from the citizens. And this is the case in Pakistan, that those who are at the helm of affairs judge and carry yardstick to censor anything they like. I would rather say that censorship should be enforced where hate speech is concerned, and everything else should be left as it is. People must have the choice what to see, what to read, what to watch, and what to post, except hate speech, which usually culminates in a loss of life.
Right. We're also joined online by Vinayak, an Indian journalist and avid music watcher. Vinayak, you saw the responses there. You heard from Lal. You saw the responses there that censorship and restrictions don't work.
Yeah, I have 2-3 points for Lal. One is I love their music. I'm very much able to connect with them because I believe that our generation from both the sides of the borders, we have very similar issues. We have a similar problem. So I guess I can connect with their music as well as with their message very well. And my second question from Lal is what is the scope of left politics? Their music is a staunch leftist music. What is the scope of left politics in Pakistan when you don't have a mainstream leftist party? Especially when both India and Pakistan, both of these countries are being ruled by a rightist parties. Nawaz Sharif as well as Narendra Modi, both of them, they belong to right wingers. So if Lal can shed some light, what can be the future course if we want them performing here in India? So if they can shed some light.
Temur, I think that's a very topical question to ask. What of the left position in a polity like India and Pakistan, where the left in itself doesn't have adequate representation? And I think this is something that we've all been grappling with as well, the alternative radical left view.
Pakistan does have radical left-wing political parties. I myself belong to a party called the Communist Pakistan Party. There is a Awami Workers Party, there is the Communist Party of Pakistan, there are several other such parties. They're very small, all of us. And of course, we don't have any main representation. But one thing that is always wrong, over ban on communist politics in Pakistan has been progressive music in Pakistan and progressive poetry in Pakistan. And Lal is a continuation, therefore, of the progressive writers movement. So we hope one day that our music can, in fact, bring the formation of a much larger, more vibrant, left-wing alternative point of view in Pakistan, as was the desire of Faiz Ahmed Faiz, Habib Jalib, Ahmed Faraaz, and so many other progressive poets.
Professor Nee, it's interesting because a lot of historical, facts have shown that music is drawn on for poets such as Taimur mentioned, because they provide a rich heritage of political activism as well.
Yes, music has drawn severely, very heavily from a lot of poets and a lot of other writers. But the question is, how do we look at this political correctness? This is one of the very, very burning issue which we have to address. Most of the time when we look at political correctness, we try to understand that political correctness is something that is connected to an alternate left or radical politics. I would like to stress this point that political correctness undoubtedly is an aspect that is related with individual subjectivity.
Right.
And it is this subjectivity which we are, being a poet, being a writer, being a musician, trying to project. There you are not criticizing one particular fundamentalist organization or one particular government, but you are criticizing internally you also. So you become your own critic ultimately. So this is something which, Pakistan, a country which has a very good tradition like India, which has been, if you are looking at the poems by Faiz Ahmad Faiz, this is very much there. Some of the lines by Faiz Ahmad Faiz have been adopted into, various kinds of music. There are a number of poets, which I can cite, whom I can cite. But the point is, none of these poets, while they wrote, they took they concentrated more on their internal subjectivity, which later became a kind of political message. And this political message undoubtedly belonged to a kind of change, which we try to call a radical one. So radical politics in music also, is something that depends upon a particular temporality which is concerned with space and time. So one radical, you being a radical, that doesn't mean that you have to follow the same radical politics each and everywhere, because the notion of radical politics in music, in poetry, in language, in literature, in linguistics is also, constantly changing.
All right, we're also joined online by Chintan Girish Modi, who's from Bombay, Friendship Across Borders. Chintan, if you can hear us, what do you make of what's been happening with Lal? And like Lal was pointing out, when they came to India, they were extremely popular. There were people mouthing their lyrics as well. So you really can't shut down groups that are carrying a political message through their creative art.
I'm not able to hear you clearly.
Right, Chintan, I was just asking you for your reactions to Lal and the fact that it's so popular, not just in Pakistan, but across the board in India as well.
Hello.
All right, I don't think Chintan is able to hear us, but you're making a very valid point. What was for someone an individual statement and a very emotive statement has become somewhat of a popular, radical protest against the times that we live in. Interestingly enough, the polity itself in India is debating whether they even need an information broadcasting ministry to do those kind of checks and balances.
Exactly. So, information broadcasting ministry is a kind of an organization which basically looks for some kind of, graph. They are having certain check-ins and check-outs. So, they just look at the check-ins and check-outs. And here, obviously, this notion of exclusion and inclusion comes very, very crucially. But the point is, beyond this exclusion and inclusion, is not there a world beyond this exclusion and inclusion? How do you locate the music of the pedestrians? How can you locate the voice of those people who are doubly marginalized? I'm not talking about particularly a marginalized section. I'm talking about the people who are doubly marginalized inside the state. All right, on the one hand, you are getting marginalized politically from this kind of an administration. On the other hand, you are marginalized particularly because of your caste or gender or whole lot of other things. So the new music which is coming up across all third world nations, I'm not only particularly talking about Lal, but again, let me concentrate on the new music which is coming as a kind of protest from the third world. It is definitely against, and it is a kind of an antinomy against any kind of this established structure like information broadcast ministry. What does the ministry do? Ministry ultimately is an organization for some kind of balance. They need to have this kind of balancing power either with a troupe or with a group of dramatists or with a brilliant poet. But we, all of us need to realize the fact that we are not living in a kind of totalitarian regime. But constantly, the notion of snooping and surveillance upon each and every individual is happening right now. And it is against this snooping and surveillance, and it is against this kind of this peculiar kind of the Big Brother 1984 Orwellian situation. We need to organize ourselves
Against and raise a voice. I think, Sana, you were raising that question when we kind of lost your audio in between, where you were talking about this very murky area of what's acceptable, what's not as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we for one should know there is a guideline about what's acceptable from now. It seems that any and all kinds of criticism of the state is unacceptable, and then it becomes much more difficult when the state uses excuse like immorality, blasphemy, and obscenity to block content, because any kind of dissent is then considered immoral, anti-religion, or anti-state. And it's for people like me who want in a very, very difficult environment.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to let you, Taimur and Mehwash, have the last word, because we're going to also be playing a track from you to close the show. But what plans after the tour of Pakistan? Are you going to go international as well?
Yeah, why not? I think the Jaipur Literature Festival is coming up in September. I've been invited to for another seminar, conference, and performance in Calcutta. So I'll be there, etc. And later this year, we hope that we'll be able to finish our third album and release it. So if that happens, then we'll probably do a big tour of India as well after this tour, after the to launch our third album in India, etc. So we've got big plans, and PTA, frankly, and the ban on us, frankly, has been, I must write them a thank you letter, because they're really helping out with our plans.
Absolutely.
Making us even more popular amongst the youth.
Okay, so hopefully we'll see you in India, and hopefully I'll get to meet you after many years of being in university as well. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. We close out the show with a song by Lal, Utho Meri Duniya. Thank you for watching.
जगा दो, काफ़े उम्रा के दरो दीवार हिला दो, गरमाओ गुलामों का लहू सोज़े यकीन से, मुंशक के फरमाया को शाही से लड़ा दो।